Hello, I'm Tom Knowlton of Drecker Brewing, and this is the Brewer to Brewer podcast from All About Beer. My guest today is Mike Pallen of Microphone Brewing, and he is here for a conversation that goes beyond the brew house and into topics that matter to brewing professionals and curious beer drinkers. First, please visit allaboutbeer.com and follow on social media at allaboutbeer. And to support journalism in the beer space, check out allaboutbeer.com/support. We'll get into the conversation in just a moment, but first, this message.
Today's episode is brought to you by stompstickers.com, trusted by thousands of breweries across the country. Fall beer season is here, and whether you're rolling out an Oktoberfest, a fresh seasonal release, or gearing up for a packed taproom, Stomp has your labels, keg collars, coasters, beer boxes, and more covered. With over 30 years of printing experience and a 100% satisfaction guarantee, your fall lineup is in good hands. Try your first run at stompstickers.com and get 15% off with code TRY15. That's TRY15 at stompstickers.com. As an industry-leading keg management partner, Keg Logistics delivers premium stainless steel kegs with the flexibility you truly need. Whether you're kegging your first batch or scaling your distribution, choose the program that fits. Rent to own, flexible term leasing, or pay per fill. Get top quality kegs without massive upfront costs and terms that grow with you. Thousands of brewers, cider makers, and wineries trust Keg Logistics to keep production flowing. Head to keglogistics.com/allaboutbeer for your custom quote. Keg Logistics, your kegs, your choice. Shopping for organic malt? There's no need to pay a premium for imports. Gambrinus Malting has your organic brewing needs covered with a full lineup of certified organic malts, including Organic Pilsner, Pale, Munich Light, and Wheat. Crafted in British Columbia from the finest North American barley and wheat, Gambrinus organic malts deliver the performance you expect at domestic prices. For the organic malt you need at a price that'll make you smile, the answer is simple. Order Gambrinus from RahrBSG.
This episode is brought to you by John I. Haas and Next Gen Selection. Harvest is your opportunity to find the hop profiles that fit your beer, and with Next Gen Selection, more brewers can take part in selecting the world's finest hops. Select from sensory-crafted, true-to-type hop profiles with minimum commitments starting at just 220 pounds per variety. Join Haas and Yakima during harvest or bring the selection experience to your brewery with remote selection. Contact your Haas sales representative or visit johnihaas.com/harvest for details.
Welcome. And I'm very pleased today to have Mike Pallen as my guest. Thanks for joining, Mike. Founder/owner Mike Pallen grew up around beer as his father worked for Miller Brewing in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It was during a botany class at the University of Wisconsin-Madison where Pallen first brewed a batch of beer. A few years later, Mike and his wife Lisa purchased a house just outside of Chicago where Mike would create Microphone Brewing in their basement. Inspired by his years of working in the music industry, doing music licensing and marketing, as well as his travels to breweries all over the U.S., Pallen began creating beers that were not readily available in the Chicagoland area, such as hazy IPAs, pastry stouts, and fruited Berliner Weiss ales. In the beginning of 2015, Microphone Brewing brewed and released its first commercial beer. In that same year, Microphone Brewing was awarded Best New Brewery in Illinois by Rate Beer, as well as one of the best new breweries in the world by Beer Advocate magazine. With music and flavor as their inspiration, Microphone Brewing continues to produce high-quality, small-batch beer, including everything from classic styles to styles that push the boundaries of what beer can become. Microphone Brewing is craft beer inspired by music. Well, welcome, Mike. Thank you for joining in on this conversation.
Thanks for having me, Tom. Excited to chat with you.
Yeah, me too. So part of the reason that I approached Mike in the first place is because Mike says pretty much yes to everything that I've ever asked him to do, and and he's a good communicator, which can be rare in the beer industry where we're running around like crazy all day and emails can get lost. So really appreciate you taking some time for me. I guess my first question kind of spins off that. How has Microphone and maybe your career been influenced by or shaped by saying yes to basically every opportunity?
Yeah, it's funny, man. I think the beauty of being a small brewery and owned by just me and my wife is that we can say yes or say no whenever we want. But I think the way to grow what we do, who we are, and what we can become is by saying yes. And I'll step back, and I actually said no at one point. I actually didn't respond to somebody at one point, and that came back to haunt me. I learned a lot from that. And actually, it was Kyle from Horus. He had dropped me a message on Instagram years and years and years ago before I even knew of Horus. And it was kind of him pitching it. He wanted to get, his 11 or I think 12 favorite breweries together to do something. And I kind of just didn't even pay attention to it. I kind of ignored it because we were so busy. And then years later, I met Kyle and he brought that up to me. And I was like, you know what? I need to be more diligent on paying attention to messages that come through and be ready to say yes to opportunities such as that. So I think that kind of shaped me early on to be ready for that and be ready to say yes. And I think saying yes allows you to learn, to grow, and to continue to develop your brand and your personality.
Yeah. And I mean, just speaking to the point of like, I reached out to you first because I knew that you would say yes, or that you would at least work with me or respond to me. Made it super easy for me. And I feel like that just develops such partnerships in the industry. And I mean, I really see you as the triple threat in the industry where you're making killer beer, 2, you're super kind and fun to work with. And then the 3, you're always down to do something, always down to push the limits on what a collab could be or things like that. So I really value that in our relationship. And I've taken a lot of lessons from that as well. Just, saying yes to more opportunities. I guess I wonder with that, has that created more access to like really appealing opportunities? I think we first met in Copenhagen at Mikler, the beer fest they do over there. Does having that reputation kind of get you access to pretty much everything?
Yeah, I think when you mentioned relationships and, diving in and meeting people, you never know who they are, what they're going through. You might see what they are online and this and that. But once you actually get down to brass tacks and hanging out at beer fests or hanging out at pre-parties or whatever it could be, you really get to know people. And I think that I have forged some incredible friendships and relationships in this industry over these last 15 years that they become secondary family to me. We were traveling the circuit weekend and week out, and we would see each other Thursday through Sunday. And I'd see them more than my regular friends at times, or even more than my family, unfortunately. We built these amazing bonds and relationships that, I think during COVID, we all kind of hit a wall of like, how are we going to navigate this? What are we going to do? And here we had this web of brewers all across the world that were going through something similar, but also in different situations. And we could kind of work together to navigate through that. And I think that it's been fun to grow with people, and beer is such a universal language that no matter where you are, we're all having fun with it. We're all experiencing it. We're all enjoying it. We can all work together on it. And being able to participate in a fest like Oktoberfest, being able to come out and brew with you in Fargo. And I remember the first time I ever came out, because it just popped up in my feed, I was like, I had no idea what I was walking into. You have one perception of Fargo via the movies and shows. But I went out there and it was, you guys made it incredibly comfortable, and the town was awesome, and we had a blast. And I look forward to coming out there at least twice a year, every year. And just being able to continue to build relationships, have friendships that we can grow on forever. I feel like there's almost times where, I've got a group of people coming in town tomorrow from Orchestra Mines, Forbidden Root, Ology, and Zool that, we're going to release a beer tomorrow, but then the rest of the weekend, we're just going to go relax and hang out and golf and sit by the bonfire and kick it and tell stories and continue to grow that way. And it's been just an amazing opportunity to be in this industry.
Yeah. And I think, that's what I enjoy so much about the industry itself is like, I can't speak for other industries, even in like the spirits or winemaking world, but I feel like the beer industry is really good about collaboration and working towards the same goals and problem solving together. Cause we face problems every day as breweries, no matter your size, that someone's gone through most likely before, or if they have not, they're definitely willing to critically think and solve that with you. And I wonder if that's unique to us, or, the way craft beer has gone with these new styles, new processes and things like that, it'd be really easy for some of these bigger guys or the pioneers of certain styles to hold that as proprietary knowledge. But I've never really run into a situation where a brewer is withholding a certain process or whatever. And I think that's part of the reason that we've survived the COVID pandemic stuff. We've survived ups and downs in the industry, why we're continuing to survive right now when beer and drinking on a whole is going down. And I just really appreciate our relationship with that. And yeah.
My wife works in accounting, and she sees like a lot of business is, always competing. Right. And so when we first started the industry and we were diving into collabs and sharing information. She was just like, this blows my mind that you guys are so open and collaborative. But I think if you look back at the basis of Microphone, craft beer inspired by music, I came from an industry where collaboration was so key. I mean, you think about all the artists that have worked together over the years and have brought their knowledge together to create this new medium, this new art form. And I think that without collaboration, things just kind of get stale and boring. With collaboration, you're growing networks, you're growing markets, you're growing brands, you're growing products, and you're letting artistic flair come together to create this beautiful new product. I was actually listening to a podcast yesterday with John Oates from Hall & Oates, and he was talking about how he's continuing to collaborate with the younger generation because they're in a different mindset than when he was in the industry. And I think that it's so helpful to work together with people that come from different backgrounds, different angles, and seeing what makes sense. And I think that, we just wrote a new recipe together. There was something that inspired, I had in my back of my mind, you had something, and boom, we merged together to make this killer product. And I think that without collaboration, we just kind of stay in our lane and kind of becomes boring in one way. So I think the relationships and collaboration is just, it's so key in our industry. And it's unique to some people, but for me, again, with the music background, it is exactly what everything I've known about how industry should work together.
Yeah, and that's interesting to tie in your history with the music side of that. How would you say that having a dad growing up and brewing for Miller, working for Miller, like does that shape anything? Because I would assume that they were pretty tight and proprietary with their process stuff, but.
Yeah, so my dad actually didn't brew. He was a steam fitter, but obviously we were around the whole industry. I remember, being a little kid in my footy pajamas, getting driven down there to bring dad lunch because he worked third shift or second shift, and just seeing the process and seeing the tanks and understanding how the grain came in on these train cars and all this stuff. And I got to know the process very, very young, and understood there was a lot of big things were happening. And at the time, like I think Philip Morris bought them and Kraft was part of it. And then you had the merger of bringing Leinenkugels into the fold, which is kind of a wild concept to have this massive, massive mega brewery bringing in a smaller at the time local brewery, and developing that out. And I always loved the branding of Miller. I still love the branding of Miller. And I kind of focused more on that than anything. I'm just seeing how they built such a lifestyle brand that has carried on for generations upon generations. I think I took that out of there. My dad told me, though, do not do what I do. It's labor intensive, hard work, working, as a steam fitter. Put your head in the books, go to college, and get a job in whatever you want to do. And I love music and I love marketing, and so that was my goal. And then finding that class as an elective in college that allowed me to brew a beer. I got to go to the wine and hop shop up in Madison, which actually I was up there last week for the great taste. And that homebrew shop still exists, which is awesome. And like just to make a beer in our apartment and get, dirty with that whole process was incredible. And I knew that shortly after, graduating and finally getting a house that I needed a hobby again, and homebrewing was just the natural fit because it's been something that I've just been part of with the brewing industry for a very, very long time.
Yeah, and that's funny that you say, I mean, I wouldn't, there's a level of like the craft and the artisan work to do to make the beer that drew you to that, but I had never homebrewed prior to brewing a full scale batch of beer at our 10 barrel in our old location. And so I just think that's interesting where like really the draw of the same type of draw for people is you're making something with your hands, you can be creative. I didn't come from like a hobby side of it. I just saw this as an opportunity to, like you said, I mean, even probably, I would imagine being a steam fitter is way worse than being a brewer as far as like toll on your body and things like that. But like, that was also an alluring part of me is like, this is an industry where you stick your nose down and you can work hard and you'll see the rewards of that. You'll see, everything's as clean as it can be. The product is really great. So I find it funny that, especially in our little industry group of friends that you and I are in, it's like a lot of that same type of people are like, they like to be creative, but also they're there to get their nose dirty. Well, at least at the start, they started with that. And I just think that that's what we're going to see in the industry is like those people are surviving and they will survive.
I mean, yeah, I for a while there, I was, resorted to the desk job of this part of it. So I had a brewer, I had a packaging team, I had all this stuff, and I was, doing the invoices and the marketing side of stuff. And I recently like felt like I lost touch with some of the important stuff of the brewery. So I dove back in, and I'm on the packaging line. I'm cleaning kegs, and so my hands are all cut up, and I can feel it right now. But that's the grit and that's the grind that I missed and I loved, because you feel even more connected to it all. And it's something that I definitely seen in our industry, is the amount of hard work that goes into it. And the beer fests are fun, right? Everyone thinks that's what we do, is we go to beer fest and we drink and have a great time. There's a ton of stuff behind the scenes that goes into it to get to those beer fests. And even those beer fests are a lot of work. It's a lot of networking, a lot of talking, a lot of setup, a lot of breakdown. And I think that at the end of the day, you've got to bust your butt in this industry to make it happen. And doing that, it's so rewarding at the end of the day to sit back and go, heck yeah, that was a great day. Got a lot accomplished. Feels amazing.
Yeah, and it's the discipline of it. And I think it's funny that you mentioned getting back into the brewery, because I very rarely brew anymore. And there's times where I'm doing spreadsheets or invoice, whatever you're doing, and I just wish I was turning valves again. It's like, one, it's simpler in a way, like you're not thinking about anything except for the product. But I think it's funny that, again, our group of friends, a lot of people have gotten out of the actual brewing day to day, and I think you're the fourth or fifth that has told me, like, I had to get back on there and start turning some valves again, just, because that is what the industry is at the end of the day. It's a liquid in the glass. But I think both of us, and you especially, have built a lot around that with, relationships and things like that. But it is funny that at our core, all we want to do is just be a part of like the entire process and have our hands in something cool.
Yeah, and I was talking to my wife about this the other day. Like, there is a point where now we're getting into these 10, 12, 13 years old, where the goal is different than it was in the beginning, right? It was, let's just make incredible beer and see what happens and be artists and all that stuff. And then as time goes on, you bring in employees, you have all this, things you have to take care of, and more financial responsibilities. Money becomes a driver a little bit, unfortunately. And so to kind of step back from that and bring it back and be like, you know what, let's go back to what really truly matters, diving into making the best freaking product we can, even if sometimes we take a loss on it, because we know that, the market doesn't want to pay a certain amount for a certain beer, but we know in our heart of hearts, that's what it's going to take to make the best product in the world. We have to do that. And I've really focused back on that, and like, going back to recipes that we've had since day one, how can we make them even better as a product for taste and for consistency? And getting into all that stuff has been, it's been incredibly rewarding, because it's been a grind. It's day after day after day after day, cranking and going and trying to build these brands out. But the core of it all is that we're part of this amazing craft beer boom 10, 15 years ago. And that all started because of creativity with the product. Grain and yeast and hops have been around forever and ever. But we, last, I'd say 15, 20 years, really dove into playing with what we could do and pushing the boundaries. And we continue to do that. And I think it's good to realize what our main focus and goal is in this industry.
Yeah, and I think that brings up a good point, kind of getting into a segue into one of my other questions. How do you think you can stay relevant in this ever-changing industry while still staying true to those passions in terms of beer and business? Like, I'm passionate about really tight lagers. I'm passionate about West Coast IPAs and things like that. And those things are not necessarily the biggest driver in our industry right now. And like you said, like it's a money thing at this point in our careers, where we're responsible for 20, 30 employees at minimum. And, we have to make the pastry sours. We have to make the big, stouts are one thing, but, and you guys kind of started from a place of maybe less, I guess, hypey beer, and we're making really tight lagers and hazies and things like that. But how do you stay relevant when you have to, fulfill the market need and sell these products that people want, but also you have a passion about what you want to make and how you want to do business?
Yeah, there's many different lanes we operate in now, right? So we finally got into some, big distribution with some big distribution players, and they want to focus on core beer, right? And it's funny, I actually didn't know the term LTO until not too long ago. So limited time offer, right? And like, that was everything we did. Everything we did was a brand new beer, pushing new products, pushing new concepts. And we finally had to level into making core beers, which thankfully we've had some beers over the years that would make sense for that. We pushed into that. And so with that as focusing on core that can sit on the shelf, it can fill the shelf constantly and be consistently great. And that's one lane. Then there's the lane of, okay, what does the market want to drink? We never really played in that early on. It was always, let's make what we want to make. And that was, all right, now we know that industry's changed. There's different tastes and all this stuff. Our tap room has changed that we can actually have cocktails. And so we're focusing on doing special whiskey picks and creating special cocktails for that to play in that lane. But then on the beer side, yeah, let's make the lager, which we never used to make. Let's make the West Coast Pils, which we never used to make. And then the final lane is, let's do what we want to do. That's what we got in this industry for. Let's make the stuff that we want to drink, and see if people care about it. And it's been a lot of fun to continue to develop recipes that are still kind of fun and wacky, because that was a big thing for us in the beginning. We were playing around with all the crazy stuff, and I think that was the beauty of the Instagram breweries back in the day. Putting cake in a beer, putting chicken in a beer. We've gotten away from that a little bit, but what we're playing with now is the advanced top products. We're playing around with ways to take an old concept and make it fun, or we're taking our old recipes and just modernizing them to make them even better and more applicable to the taste buds. And it's been a lot of fun to kind of dive into that. The first beer we ever came out with was called Misty Mountain Hop, and it was kind of a American style IPA. And it, kind of lived on for these last 11 years as that beer. And one day I was like, you know what, we've got to develop our menu. So like when a customer comes here, we've got everything. We've got pales, we've got IPAs, we've got doubles, we've got hazies, we've got West Coast, we've got this and that. And so we had two competing beers with I Want My IPA and Misty Mountain Hop. And so we dumbed down, and I'm dumbing down, I mean ABV of Misty Mountain Hop from a 7.25% beer to a 5.5% pale ale. But kept the base of that beer being American IPA with a ton of hops as a pale version, and it just won gold less than a month ago at US Open Beer Championship. And so to kind of reinvent something that's already been here at our fingertips has been a lot of fun to play with too. So having a lot of fun with that, and just continuing to find what people care about and what we care about, because at the end of the day, we also want to drink our product, and exactly, yeah. If we're not satisfied with what's in our glass, why would we care? So we've got to care. And I honestly think that we are making the best beer we've ever made since homebrewing days, since the existence of microphone. And it goes down to just being consistent processes, learning, growing, advancing, and sticking to who we are.
Well, that's great. I bet you feel great about being in that position. And I'm in the same boat a little bit. Let's talk about core versus the LTO limited time offering stuff. You mentioned the pale ale and retooling a pale ale. Are those coming back? Because I get sales asking me every single day that we should brew a pale ale, this and that. And I've never seen them sell well. And is that actually going to be part of like a core brand for you guys?
So I think with pale ales is that you've got to understand where it's going to be sold, right? And so I've talked to a lot of people on the distro side. Pales are not the best on distro. And I think that goes down to when people are buying beer to take home, they want the bang for the buck. They want the bigger ABV. They want that. But if someone comes to our tap room, or someone goes to a beer dinner, someone goes to a special event, they want to be able to drink more than just one or two, right? And so that lower ABV is giving them the opportunity to have more, to try more, especially in our tap rooms. We've got several beers on now. And so if you only came in and were only able to have one beer, you missed out on most of the experience. And so having these lower ABV options has been a huge change for us, I'd say, in the last year and a half. Everything from the light lager to the lighter seltzers to the lighter IPAs and pales. We've seen an enormous uptick in those draft pours. As far as getting out to the market, though, when we go out to distro, people still love those big double IPAs. And that is, the home run out there in the market for distro.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing some of the same stuff. Being in Fargo, we want the closest thing to Busch Light that you have on tap a lot of the time. So we have to cater to that crowd. But we do have a tight following of, people who are seeking out the next new IPA, the next new sour that we're doing. It's a fun balancing act as a production side of it. As the one who does the planning for that is like, we need to start pre-selling or something, because we're brewing these beers, and then if they don't go out in the 2 weeks that they're released before the next set of beers comes out, we're kind of screwed. Like, it's been I feel like the industry going away is definitely moving away from that LTO model where you're always having something new, like that sells like crazy, and people are craving like this core brand stuff. And so that's been interesting to see on the distribution side for us. On the LTO side, do you think that there is, I'm not asking you to give any sort of proprietary knowledge necessarily, but like you mentioned advanced hop products, and we're using a lot of those as well, and I think they're incredible. Are we at a point in the industry where like we're done inventing? Like we can't invent anymore. Now we just have to tighten up what we've done? Or how do you think there's a product out there, whether it be IPA or sour or anything like that, that we have not thought of as an industry yet?
Man, I think that's where we all scratch our brain, because we all sat there thinking that hazy IPA was going to be this fad and that it was lazy and all this stuff. And I loved it from day one, and I've stuck to it. And I will go down saying I'll probably be the last person to drink hazy if I have to be, because I love the beer. I love the style. I love everything about it when it comes to the product. And I think that, we've seen a lot of people shift away from, in our industry, when we go to bars and hang out at fests, most brewers are drinking lager nowadays. I'm going straight to the IPAs because that's everything I care about the most. And then, you saw, okay, hazy was this new product that took off, and there was a lot of initial backlash. Even in Chicago, it was like, if you couldn't see your hand through the glass, it was dirty, send it back. And so hazy got a lot of backlash here early on. And it took a long time for people to kind of catch on to it. And then once it did, it's not going away. It's still one of our number one selling beers every week, is whatever hazy we put out. And then we kind of were granted this opportunity to make seltzer and play in that realm and cater to, a crowd that was looking for something that had a lighter base and gluten-free and all these opportunities that we were playing into. And I think what we need to do as far as innovation goes is respond to what consumers are looking for. Is it lower ABV? Is it healthier options? Is it something that we haven't done before? And I really haven't found that yet. I think that for me here in Chicagoland, Hayes took over in the last, when we started brewing that 13 years ago. And there's that new money crowd, I'm putting that in quotes, that has never had West Coast IPA. And I'm talking true, tried and true, hit you in the face, 100 IBU, light your palate on fire. And so, we started back bringing, American IPA, and then we started doing some baby stepping into West Coast. And now we're working our way back into bringing back that massive IBU and seeing who cares about it. It's my taste buds kind of went to missing out because we drank so much juice that the bitterness was gone and missing, and our palates craved it. And so we've been baby stepping back into it. And I would love to see that come back around. Is that innovation? Probably not. But for some people who've never had that experience of drinking that beer, that is innovation. And I think that, we got to remember when we came into this realm of craft beer and to beer in general. And there are some people that missed certain styles, and that we can come back and introduce those to those guys, those people, and let them play in that and see what other stuff. And I think that we're coming back into making more Belgian beers, making more Saison, and just trying to continue to round out our menu. I don't know the answer to what's next yet. I keep trying to figure that out, because I think that there's going to be something that sticks. We've tried the brewed IPAs, we're trying rice lagers, we're trying all these fun things over the years. Nothing's stuck like hazy, and nothing's sticking like seltzer. And so I'm curious to see what is next, and I think that's something that we can all continue as we get together and hang out, continue to try to figure that out. I think that Zool has done an incredible job by creating this peanut butter and jelly beer. And that's their thing. We all kind of had a peanut butter and jelly, but when they made theirs, it is just so different and so unique. And it kind of reminded me of when Ecto Cooler started coming out, and everybody's doing Ecto Coolers. And so, like, what's from Ecto Cooler to PB&J? What's the next one? What's the thing that's gonna hit? It's out there. We just gotta unearth it and figure it out, because consumers are always thirsty and looking for something new and fun.
Yeah, let's hit on that cyclical nature and kind of how hops are being utilized right now. But first, we're going to take a short break for this message and come right back for more of the conversation with Mike Pallen of Microphone.
You don't have to travel to Yakima to make hop selection part of your harvest. With remote selection from John I. Haas, your brewing team can evaluate hop samples right at the brewery and select the sensory profiles that best fit your beers. And through next-gen selection, minimum commitments start at just 220 pounds per variety, making meaningful hop selection accessible to more breweries. This harvest, make your hops your choice. Contact your Haas sales representative or visit johnihas.com/harvest for more information.
As an industry-leading keg management partner, Keg Logistics delivers premium stainless steel kegs with the flexibility you truly need. Whether you're kegging your first batch or scaling your distribution, choose the program that fits. Rent to own, flexible term leasing, or pay per fill. Get top quality kegs without massive upfront costs and terms that grow with you. Thousands of brewers, cider makers, and wineries trust Keg Logistics to keep production flowing. Head to keglogistics.com/allaboutbeer for your custom quote. Keg Logistics, your kegs, your choice. Shopping for organic malt? There's no need to pay a premium for imports. Gambrinus Malting has your organic brewing needs covered with a full lineup of certified organic malts, including Organic Pilsner, Pale, Munich Light, and Wheat. Crafted in British Columbia from the finest North American barley and wheat, Gambrinus organic malts deliver the performance you expect at domestic prices. For the organic malt you need at a price that'll make you smile, the answer is simple. Order Gambrinus from RahrBSG. Got a fall release you want to test before going all in? StumpStickers.com makes it easy with low minimums, fast turnaround, and a 100% satisfaction guarantee. Perfect for seasonal beers, limited runs, and whatever you've got brewing next. Get started on your labels, keg collars, coasters, beer boxes, and more at StumpStickers.com.
All right, Mike, you said something in that last response just about kind of mentioning the cyclical nature of beer drinkers and things like that. And one of the reasons that I think hazies have stuck around so long, we're kind of wondering, some people are wondering why. I don't think you and I are in that camp, but for me, like when I tell my new beer tenders, for example, like the beauty of hazy IPAs is you can make a beer with basically the same base, the same ABV, and just by manipulating process, hop product, types of hops, varietals, like you can completely change the beer. And I think that that's the staying power of that. And then if we're going to talk about going back into these West Coasts, and that has the same allure, there's new hop products for oil content. There's new hopping techniques even that you could steal from a hazy IPA, for example. So what do you look for when you're making a hazy or a West Coast? Is it a very hop forward thing? Is it a process thing? What's your favorite way to approach that?
Yeah, I think on the hazy side, we continue to play with our base because we sometimes we want to go with that orange hue beer, right, and bring that kind of concept of you're drinking orange juice immediately as you see it. But now we've been playing with this, as grain has advanced and developed, we're getting a lighter pills, and we're playing with a kind of saturated methodology. We're able to get these super beautifully light straw yellow color murky hazy beers that are really like it blows your mind to look at it because it does almost look like this like milk product, and then you drink it and it's just so smooth. And the hop products now, like we packaged one yesterday, and it's got superdelic, nectaron, and citra, and just like the explosive gooseberries and tropical candy is way different than what we've had before by using citra and nectaron. And so stuff like a superdelic that is new to us added another layer to it all. And it's been really fun to kind of see these new products. And we're actually being able to get more of them in from, small growers like Eggers and New Zealand hops and Freestyle. And, we grab a 44-pound box of this random hop that we've never played with, and we give it a shot and we see what's up. And it's been so much fun to play in that world and get to it. And then as you swing back to the West Coast side, all the hops that kind of got forgotten about, Columbus and Centennials and Simcoe, I think, has come back. Simcoe's been one of my favorite hops forever, but Simcoe is just incredible right now. And you got Columbus CGX, and you got these different Columbus products that are bringing that bitterness back that we missed, or we neglected, I should say, not missed, but neglected. And it's it's continuing to see what these guys are working with. We're working closer and closer with the hop producers than we ever have before. We did something with Haas where we flew out to Yakima and actually brewed in their innovation lab to try to play with some of their new hops. They actually came out here a couple weeks ago, and we're releasing a beer with them next week with tons of their new products, their Prisma and their Lupicore. And it might sound like, all right, this is all the marketing team drumming up new products, but at the end of the day, for us, these are new avenues that we can sprinkle into these beers and give them, a totally different vibe than they ever had before. And, there's some benefits too on the backside of using flowables versus using pellets. But at the end of the day, it's all about what can we get out of these products that make the beer even more better and advancing them. And it's been a lot of fun to dive into that and not have to like overcommit. We were part of the early days of the hop shortage where you had a contract citra, unless if you didn't get it. And I think now kind of things have leveled back in, and we have access to more hops than we ever have, and we have access to different lots of hops than we ever have. And it's fun to play with those and to develop, and then also to have the consistent hops. I think you're going out to do some hop selection soon. We're heading out in September as well, and to dial in and really pinpoint the hops that we want to keep our core brands consistent is great. And then to see what else is out there for the LTOs, we've got a chance to rub it, feel it, and bring it in and put it in right in our beer as soon as we can.
Yeah, and I think that speaks a little bit to the industry and those who have kind of survived this downswing or are being successful in the industry. Is kind of a letting your guard down and understanding, like, I mean, I was resistant to a lot of even flowables when they first came out because you just don't know. And I think that to be successful in this industry in the state that it's at, to be able to kind of come up with new products and stuff like that, we had to let our guard down a little bit. And what we're finding is, like you say, is like there's tons of great stuff out there. There's the flowables and all that stuff like that. That is even like the next innovation is using these products that maybe you would deem not traditional or things like that to make really great beer. And I think at the end of the day, like, I mean, I combat this a little bit with some of my brewers who tend to be more traditional side. It's like, at the end of the day, the product in the glass is what matters because that's what we're drinking. That's what the customers are drinking. And however we're going to arrive at this banging beer, like, it doesn't really matter when it comes down to it. And,
that reminds me of like, on the fruit side of things, like, if it was like, if you're not using real fruit, then what are you doing? And then we're using puree, right? So it's still real fruit, but it's processed for us. And then we've gotten into using juice concentrates, and it's been incredible. I mean, just to have that different style. So not a smoothie style, but a fruited juice product, to open us up and kind of take your guard down, like you said, and to be like, what is out there? What can we use? It continues to help us advance and play around.
Yeah, and I think for the longest time, I mean, I had a light bulb moment a few years ago where we were not using concentrates, we were not using a lot of extracts, we were trying to use all the real stuff. And I had a beer that I just worked so hard on, like stayed extra late, was there till about midnight, tweaking it, trying to get the vanilla character right where we wanted it to be, things like that, using real vanilla beans. And at the end of the day, the customer, experience was just kind of not meh, but like, yeah, this is another great sour that you guys made. And it's like, okay, so really what they're looking for is something that tastes good, and it doesn't necessarily matter how we get there. Like, so that was a real eye opener for me, and starting to use like juice concentrates and things like that. Like, we're trying to make a delicious product in the glass, however we can get it. And I think being able to let go of that a little bit.
And that's one of those things about, Smells Like Bean Spirit, which is our Imperial Breakfast Stout that we've been making forever, that we found that, as much as we want to be a purist, we wanted to use real maple syrup, it ferments out. Or you have to use other processes to keep it from not having bottle bombs or can bombs. And so we found that, we still use maple syrup through fermentation to kind of get us that, that sugar boost and that kind of flavor to it. But at the end of the day, it kind of goes away through fermentation. And so we had to top note it with a little bit of maple extract. And it's just that one thing you have to do to make sure that you're driving home the exact concept of what we're looking for. And I remember going to Miller Coors. I got invited to go make beer with Dick Leinenkugel, and we were talking about some of the products they had and what they were doing. And there was no secret on his end how they were getting to some of the flavors. And I thought that, yeah, I mean, that's how a lot of things are created. Again, we were trying to stay away from it in the beginning because we wanted to be as pure as possible. But there's sometimes you just have to resort to different methods of getting to it. And as long as, like you said, at the end of the day, if what's in the glass tastes great, then perfect.
And that kind of gets into my next point or my next question, I guess. Taking all this information about hazies, fads, and things like that, and kind of what we've learned over the explosion and then now a little bit of a downturn and that sort of thing. How are you preparing for the next 10 years of microphone? Like, are there, like you mentioned a little bit, but do you have kind of a plan on, we're going to stick to core, this or that?
I think about these next 5 years, 10 years all the time. And, we continue to look for potentially doing a second location somewhere. I think what I really, really want to focus on, and this is just, it's one of those things that you kind of have to at some point understand, is that maybe taking a step back a little bit, not producing as much as we do right now, focus on getting people to our tap room to enjoy the freshest beer possible, enjoying that, seeding a little bit out there in the market for distro, but really focusing on making our taproom experience the best. And I think that's where craft beer really exploded in my eyes, was these different taprooms popping up across the US, going in there and having a different experience and seeing what the latest and greatest and freshest was. We kind of got away from that because COVID pushed us out. We couldn't sell beer in our taprooms. We had to go get beer out to people. And that kind of pivoted us all to these distro models. And I really feel like that changed the focus of who we were at Microphone. There was a long time that we didn't have any beer, not a single ounce of beer, go out of our doors, because we built an experience here where people came and wanted to enjoy it. And I want to go back to focusing on that. I want people to come to Microphone and know that everything that we have here is fresh, good to go. Take a 4-pack home or take a growler home. But I really want to kind of downspin into that space. And maybe that is then having a second location that has that same kind of feel, but be creating a concept that is unique and quality driven and consistent and fun.
Yeah, that's interesting. You mentioned I think we're aligned on that, as we've actually transitioned our taproom manager into a greater role. I mean, we have a little bit more on we have, the event stuff, the hotel stuff, but she's transitioned into being our hospitality manager. So we're doubling down on that hospitality side. And I think, like you said, right away when these places crept up and started popping up, like it was cool and new and beer. And then the places that continued to be cool and new were the experience driven ones. And now everyone's kind of, the successful ones of us are all doing that experience thing, but trying to really double down on that experience side of it, making it so you walk out of here and you're losing your mind over the hospitality that you had, because that's really what's going to start driving people back when we're offering a product that, is more expensive than a domestic, is more expensive than a high noon, things like that. Like we need to connect the liquid in the glass to the hospitality. The liquid in the glass is amazing. Let's make our hospitality the same. I think we're really aligned on that. And so that's interesting to hear you say on that side. As far as like other things going into the next 5-10 years, you talked about second location, but also you mentioned the fact that like taproom, having every drop of liquid go out in the taproom is really great. Are you looking at, you mentioned a distro expansion? Are you guys going to start brewing more to fulfill that, but still trying to, sell? Obviously you want to sell as much as you can out the door, but how do you balance the exploding into distro, but still wanting to maintain that selling a lot through the taproom?
Yeah, I think the reality is that selling 100% of a taproom is few and far between nowadays, especially the sizes we all got into. And so you have to work with your distribution partners. And we've set up now, and I think we're around 10 different states. It's not consistent distro every time. Obviously, Illinois and Wisconsin are our primary targets, but we do splash drops in other places, even overseas. But trying to work with them to get a better schedule out there, to make sure that, we're still priority. And then honestly, that's where we're wrapping in these events. When we go and do fests now, it makes sense to go to the markets that we have beer in. So then we can go see accounts. We can go do tap takeovers around those areas and bars that support us. And so you have to have support behind it. You can't just send beer out to a market and hope it moves, right? So having that other part of our industry is very important. Having, boots on the ground, sales teams, is something that I used to always do that because I was self-distribution. And then now that we have distribution partners, they have their teams, but nobody is as representative of microphone as somebody who'd work for microphone. So we have to have somebody out there taking care of that. Now, can we do that in every state? Probably not. But the states that we have the bulk majority of our product going to, that's where we need to be. We need to focus on that and making sure that we are connected with the store owners, with the bars that care. Because at the end of the day, we know that this industry is built on relationships, going back to the very first thing we talked about. And that extends just beyond brewers. It extends to our distribution partners, it extends to the bar owners, it extends to the employees that work at these places that are serving our beer. If they know you, if they care about you, they're going to push your product. They're going to be excited to push your product and share your product. And that goes a very, very long way. So for us, as we continue to see our brand grow, we need to focus on that outside of just our brick and mortar here.
Yeah, and I think that's so important. Like the boots on the ground idea is, again, coming from the COVID stuff, coming from having distribution models, and LTOs driving everything. There was a time where you bought the beer because it was new and interesting. And now I feel like a lot of my friends in the industry are transitioning towards having more core out in the world. And there's a level of education that has to go on to acquire new customers for your brand and things like that. And I think straddling that line of, having someone there or having distribution partners that will fulfill your marketing needs or, education needs. Because a lot of what we're doing to a new consumer, people that we want to drink craft beer, they don't understand some of the hopping techniques and things like that and why this beer tastes like juice, or, they're not going to try it. So there's the sips to lips stuff. And that's been really fun to navigate. Stressful, but fun to navigate. Is we grew from craft and being LTO and having unique products, and that drove everything, to now being okay, we have an opportunity to capture new customers that haven't broken into this space, tying it back into what we talked about with West Coast. We have an opportunity to start making traditional style beers that we all want to drink again. And the customer base is new. They don't know anything about this. It's another craft beer boom for the younger generation. And that's really exciting and fun.
I want to top on that. So one of the things that we've been changing too is the descriptors on our labels. Because again, we know that now that beers are moving outside of just our product, we can't have our taproom people tell them exactly what the beer is. We need to make sure that our product out in the market gives the consumer all the information. So instead of just, double dry hop, double IPA, we're making sure that hazy's on the label, or West Coast or modern West Coast or, New Zealand or whatever it is. And then letting them know what hops are used in it and listing all of them out there and making sure that the customer has all the information in their hand when they're looking at this product. Because an IPA is no longer just an IPA. There's multiple different avenues for an IPA. Stout is no longer just stout, right? And so we have to educate and we have to give them all the information at their fingertips. Yes, can they jump online and look real quick on Untappd? Sure, but do they have the time? I don't know. And so anything we can do to give them that information, we have to do it.
Yeah, and I think that, like I said, it's stressful, but it's also been really fun to revisit our core beers, revisit some of these IPAs to talk about how we want them received by the customer. And because I think for the longest time our clientele was craft. Everyone knew craft. They even we've been listening hops for a long time, but they would see the hops and be I know what that tastes like. I love Citra. I love this. I hate Sabro for some reason, even though it's a great. So yeah, it's been fun. It's been fun to kind of dive into that and get. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but have you noticed? I hate to throw out the word corporate, but we've gotten more to actually having an operating system for our business, and it is a corporate on a certain level. We've directified it to the best of our ability, but for me, coming from really a small corporate experience working for a bank prior to being a brewer, but the structure has been really nice to just kind of, build the business the way it needs to be built. Are you guys focusing on any of that kind of structure stuff?
I think, we, for a while there was just kind of hey, we're all having fun. Let's just make some products. But now everyone has their buckets. We have a head brewer, we have a head packaging person, we have a tasting room manager and our staff up there, and everything's kind of run, how it should be as far as organization goes. we really focused on building out a long-term calendar, which was never a thing we used to do, right? And so now we have a look all the way out 4 months in advance, because a lot of the distribution partners want to know that information. And then we can then plot events on the calendar. We can plot, vacations, all that stuff, and be way more formal with it. It's still a whiteboard, so we can erase things. If Drecker decides to give us a call tomorrow and say they're coming in town, they want to make a beer, we could probably erase that beer that's on there and get you guys in. But we do have a forecast. We do have a plan, which leads into all the stuff, like to order cans nowadays, because we get shrink wrap cans. Having that forecast out far in advance to give them a heads up. Having the foresight with, getting contracts for grain now is something that we leverage into deeper. All those things, having that plan in place and not just willy-nilly this thing and making new beers all the time has been very helpful to keep things organized, on track, and understanding, what, like we were talking about earlier, you could make a beer and it's like, how do you move it? Well, if you have foresight to be like, hey, in 4 months, here's what we have. What are you guys interested in? And like, ooh, let's double up on that one because that one's gonna be a hot seller. We can pre-sell that one. Let's focus on that beer. It gives us this less of throwing a dart at a wall and a better plan, and gives us this kind of way to navigate through what we're doing week to week, but in a 4 month, 5 months lookout.
Yeah, and I think part of the reason I want to talk to you maybe in a more formal way is we hang out a lot, and it often, we talk business here and there, but a lot of times it's just having fun, hanging out on the lake or whatever, and super grateful for those times. But it's been fun to kind of chat about your view on the industry as someone, a stalwart that's been around for so long, and just kind of how we line up. So I hope someone can glean some information about where the industry's going, kind of what we think as brewers is necessary. And then if you're a customer or a beer drinker listening, like, let us know. People are pretty not very shy in the comment section usually, but like, you let us know with your purchases at the end of the day. So if you like something, go out and buy it. I guess.
And I'd say visit taprooms, right? That is where we make the most of our money. Distribution is tight margins. It's more of a marketing play than anything. Having people come and visiting us in person is the best way you can ever support our breweries or any business, and so getting back out, filling tap rooms, bringing that atmosphere. We can't have the energy without the consumers. And that's something that drives us. It continues to inspire us. When we have our tap room packed on those nights and days, it's great. And you feel it, you feed off it. And it keeps people employed. It keeps people happy and moving and grooving. And that is where, we get our feedback too. When you come in, we can get that direct one-to-one personal feedback instantaneously. And we can see what you guys want. We can understand what is working, what's not working. And that helps us a ton. I think COVID again changed that big time. People got very comfortable in their bubbles, and it's been hard to get them back out. And we've had to, leverage into having concerts and having bingo nights and car shows and things like that. But getting out and supporting, even if it's just to come and grab a beer, you don't have to go buy a case anymore. Come and have a beer. Come hang out. That is the biggest way a consumer can help us out.
Yeah, and I think one of the greatest parts of our industry is that community aspect of being in a tap room. I will say, though, if you come to Drecker, do not reach your hands through the cage into the brewer's area. They will bite.
Very true. I'm missing part of a finger because of it.
Yeah. No, just moving from the kind of serious business side, I wanted to just ask you a couple questions that I think are fun. And first, I guess you're a big whiskey guy. What is your favorite? And the thing I like about you as a whiskey collector, you drink your whiskey. So I've been with you drinking really great whiskey I look up later and realize how much the secondary was and feel a little guilty about having a pour of that. But what's your favorite whiskey you've been drinking in your collection right now?
Yeah, and it's one of those things where I look back and I'm like, man, I used to have all those bottles. It'd be cool to have those on my shelf somewhere, but that wasn't the point of it. The point was to try them and to learn about them and to help us develop our palates out. And so my tried and true going back to all the time is Weller. I love Weller. I think that weeded gives me the mouthfeel I want. Their barrels come to us and they're always some of the best barrels we ever get. So I think if I could get Weller 12 on the regular, that would be my go-to. I do have a bottle of Antique 107 and a full proof right now that we're drinking down right now, which is great. That's one of my favorites. And then Stag Junior. So I guess Buffalo Trace fam, right? I love Buffalo Trace products. I will say though that when I get the opportunity to go down to Louisville, I love going to Old Forester and trying those President Choice. I mean, there's something so special about those. And I heard the bottles are starting to get, easier access to them. I haven't seen a bottle in the wild, but I think that's some of the most beautiful product. And it goes back to getting out and visiting these places, right? And that is why they should have those products there and not on shelves, because it's something that you should desire to go and visit these places, try them at the source, talk to them, and you leave elated. I felt so special having that product and talking to the bartender about it and talking about why they picked that one. It was incredible. So yeah, I mean, I'm a BTEC guy all day long, and I love Old Forester. But if you had to check me on a regular day, it's probably gonna be Weller product.
And I'm living in a Buffalo Trace desert where we can't even get regular Buffalo Trace on the shelf for some reason. But I'm staring at some Weller barrels in our barrel room right now, and excited for the stouts coming out of those. I guess last fun one. I have this in here as a plug for you. It doesn't have to be in the brewery business, but what is your coolest experience you've had in business, brewery, or the music industry? And I have a specific memory of a picture with a certain high-profile billionaire. I was wondering if it was.
I'll let you bring that one up. I think. Oh man, I'm trying to think of this. I think getting the tap room open in. I'll flash back. No, I was sitting in the tasting room, the OG tasting room. This was in 2017, and I was with my bar builder, and it was super late at night. We'd been doing everything to get the final touches done, and he flipped on the neon lights on the bar. And I'm sorry, I'm getting a little choked up. He just passed away a couple months ago.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, cancer sucks, man. Get a colonoscopy. I'm gonna say that right now. That's one thing that everybody's got to do it. We're at that age to do it. Him and I were sitting back, and we flipped on the neon lights that he put in the bar. Built this beautiful custom bar, and everything kind of lit up. And it was like, all right, we've been grinding as a home brewer. We've been shadowing breweries for these last few years. We've been contract brewing at other locations. We've been hitting the pavement. Now we have our own place, and I felt like that was such a special moment to finally be like, this is our house. And now we can do what we want here, and we can share the microphone experience here in Elk Grove Village with customers. And then that next day, doors opened, and it was madness. So that was something I'll never forget. And rest in peace, Nick. And your legacy of labels that you did for us and your bars that you built for us will live on forever, man.
That's awesome. Well, I absolutely appreciate you sharing that story, even though it was kind of tough. I mean, and I think that's just highlights the industry as a whole. Like, we're all out here working our asses off, and we make these connections, and they're, lifelong friends that have built some part of the brewery. So thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
I guess I wanted to hear about the T-Swift picture, but
yeah. I mean, part of working in the music industry back in the day, we were doing a lot of custom promotions, and we were able to meet a lot of great artists over the years, and a lot of up and coming artists. And I was able to meet Taylor Swift in her early career and do a sit down interview with her twice, actually. And the one was, she was out at a theater in Chicago, went out there, interviewed her, and we got a picture together afterwards. And then her second single hit, and she took off from there. And that girl was incredibly driven. She knew exactly what she wanted to do. She was coached up right, incredibly talented. And, you look at the parallels, right? She started as country, she adapted into pop, and she's kind of come through it all. And you've got to be able to adapt and adjust. And I think that's something that we learned through COVID, and that we continue to learn through this industry, is that you can't just be stagnant and stale. You got to learn, you got to grow, you got to mature, and you got to adapt and adjust and make it happen.
For sure. So all those bearded craft beer lovers that are secretly Swifties, just know that Mike's met her if you want to shake his hand. Well, Mike, I really appreciate the conversation. I think it was a lot of good information, and it was fun to actually talk, full on serious business mode for a while, and always appreciate talking to you. Thanks for doing it.
Yeah, I really appreciate you thinking of me always. I love talking to you and hanging out with you guys. So thank you very much.
Yeah, hopefully we'll see you this fall.
Sure will.
Mike will be back on the next episode of this show as the host, having a conversation with a brewer of his choosing. So make sure to tune in next week, and that will air. A reminder, visit allaboutbeer.com and follow on social media at allaboutbeer. To support journalism in the beer space, check out allaboutbeer.com/support. I'm Tom Knowlton of Drecker Brewing. Thank you for listening to the Brewer to Brewer podcast.
Fall gets busy fast. Seasonal releases, Oktoberfests, football weekends, packed tap rooms. The last thing you need is to be waiting around on your label printer. StompStickers.com keeps things moving forward with fast print times, low minimums, and a 100% satisfaction guarantee on every order. Thousands of breweries have trusted Stomp for over 30 years for labels, keg collars, coasters, beer boxes, and more. Give them a shot this fall at stompstickers.com and use code TRY15 for 15% off of your first order. That's code TRY15 for 15% off of your first order at stompstickers.com. Shopping for organic malt? There's no need to pay a premium for imports. Gambrinus Malting has your organic brewing needs covered with a full lineup of certified organic malts, including Organic Pilsner, Pale, Munich Light, and Wheat. Crafted in British Columbia from the finest North American barley and wheat, Gambrinus organic malts deliver the performance you expect at domestic prices. For the organic malt you need at a price that'll make you smile, the answer is simple. Order Gambrinus from RahrBSG.
The hops you choose at Harvest can shape the beers you brew all year. Next Gen Selection from John I. Haas gives brewers access to sensory-crafted, true-to-type hop profiles with commitments starting at just 220 pounds per variety. Select in person during Harvest in Yakima, or take part from your own brewery with convenient remote selection option. However you select, Haas helps you find the hop character that's right for your beer. Reach out to your Haas sales representative or visit johnihaas.com/harvest.
As an industry-leading keg management partner, Keg Logistics delivers premium stainless steel kegs with the flexibility you truly need. Whether you're kegging your first batch or scaling your distribution, choose the program that fits. Rent to own, flexible term leasing, or pay per fill. Get top quality kegs without massive upfront costs and terms that grow with you. Thousands of brewers, cider makers, and wineries trust Keg Logistics to keep production flowing. Head to keglogistics.com/allaboutbeer for your custom quote. Keg Logistics, your kegs, your choice.